Hello, everyone. Today we have the diabetic from Down Under, Jamie Reed, joining us. Go ahead and give us a scoop, Jamie. When did you get diagnosed with diabetes?
Hi, Justin. Good to meet you. And I just want to say first, congratulations on your presence on YouTube with this, and also Type 1 Grit and
Thank
helping
you.
other Type 1s. Yeah, awesome. Good job. Yeah, I got diagnosed in February 2013. Remember it pretty well. I was working on a ship and felt terrible. Had all the classic symptoms but didn't know it. And saw a nurse on board, and she diagnosed me, and I had fasting blood sugars of 15 millimole, which is about 280 in your language. I'll try and convert. I'm sort of not real good at it, but that's all right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, yeah, about 4 times, I suppose, what they should be. And she told me not to muck around with it. She was an ED nurse, so emergency department nurse, and in one of our big hospitals when she wasn't working on the ship. And she said that she regularly has patients that she diagnoses, as in they come into emergency, there's an issue, oh, you're type 1 diabetic, look after yourself, and that they're in there getting their DKA sorted or whatever they're doing. And then they go and then she sees them a month or two later and they pass away. So she said, don't go getting drunk all the time, and, just learn what you've got to do. So that's when I went home and Googled diabetes, because I knew nothing about it, and found Dr. Bernstein, ordered his book, was here within a week, and read it cover to cover and started implementing everything.
Lucky you. So you found out about Dr. Bernstein pretty fast.
Yeah, really fast. A couple of days. I think it was a UK diabetes forum. I think someone mentioned it over there. So people, if you're thinking about whether you're going to mention Dr. Bernstein or Diabetes Solution in a message somewhere on Facebook or some other social media, yeah, go ahead and do it, because I just followed that, and yeah, it's a game changer. So got the book, but that was great. But I was diagnosed type 2. My doctor had no idea, and he's no longer my doctor. And I had no idea as well. So I just thought I was type 2. So implemented low carb, implemented a little bit of exercise, bearing in mind that I was already pretty fit and I was losing weight hand over fist. I was probably 5 kilograms lighter than what I am now, and eating 2 or 3 times as much. So that was when I got diagnosed. So for 10 months, I didn't have insulin. But I ran normal blood sugars for about 6 or 7 of those months, just eating low carb, as my pancreas slowly faded out. And then introduced the insulin. I was lucky enough to see an endo who diagnosed me as I walked into his office. He just said, "You're not type 2, you're type 1." And that was a big shock to me. Yeah, it wasn't good. But the journey of that 10 months meant that I knew that low carb worked. All I had to do was implement the insulin and then the timing and stuff like that. So that's what I did.
Thank God you found out about low carb so soon then, or else you might have been a lot worse off.
Yeah, I don't know how it would have gone. I don't want to think about it. I was living on a farm at the time, and the medical care that I was receiving whenever I went into town wasn't very good.
So you said you were doing...
Had to rely.
Oh, go on.
Yep. I just had to rely on what I could find online, and then Dr. Bernstein's book. I mean, if you can't have an appointment with Dr. Bernstein himself, then, you read the book. And then I found Type 1 Grit. I don't know how long I've been a member for, probably about 2014, I think. But yeah, great resource.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, and you can't get an appointment with him, but he does have those monthly seminars that you can attend on Wednesdays. Maybe I'll give a link to that. Anyway, for those first 6 months, you said you were doing fine. You were checking your blood sugar pretty frequently, and it was rather normal.
Yeah, it was really surprising, because all I did was, I used to smash the carbs. I had a 10-kilogram bag of rice sitting there in a rice cooker, and I'd generally have it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'd just chuck in some protein and chuck in some greens because I had to. And sweet potato, and corn, and all the good stuff. And it was supposed to be good stuff. Wasn't too keen on the pasta, but that's right. So I I took that away and I was like, wow, what have I got left? So I still had the protein there. I just added a little bit more of your non-starchy veg. And 2 hours post, when I was told to check, I was running fours, regularly running high fours, which is 80 to 90. And I was thinking, wow, this is pretty straightforward. I'm on the right track. And then just over a period of months, it just got worse. Then the earliest problem was waking up with double normal blood glucose, so around 160, 170, just fasting. Even though before I was up around just under 300, I was smashing the carbs, so obviously there was some serious metabolic issues going on. But then I knew that something wasn't right. So I got to see the endo. It's a 1,000-kilometre round trip, so about it's at 380 miles to Perth at the time. So I went up there, saw the endocrinologist, and drove back with a script in my hand, and then talked to the doctor and got onto insulin.
All right, so you went when you started noticing that your blood sugar was creeping up higher and higher and higher.
So what was that?
You actually went back to your doctor to get that new diagnosis once you noticed your blood sugar is getting way too high.
Oh, I just get, all the time. Every 3 months I'd go to him and get an A1C because that's what you're supposed to do. So I'd go there and I'd say, I need insulin, like my blood sugars. So after the first 3 months, I was noticing a little bit of change. And after 6 months, I was noticing more. So I said to him, I'd like some insulin. Oh, what do you want insulin for? So I can control my blood sugars. Oh, no. You're a diabetic. That's the way it should be. You're type 2. You just need to exercise more, keep taking your metformin. He gave me another one that stimulated the pancreas, but I read Dr. V's book and it was scathing, so I threw that in the bin. And I think my first A1C was just under 12. And then my next one, 3 months later, low carb but no insulin, was 5 point something. I can't remember the exact number. I've had so many, but it was in the fives. And then, the last 3 or 4 years I haven't had one over 5, which has just been amazing. It's been great, but I don't get them that often now. I might go 6 or 12 months without getting an A1C because I just look at my meter and go my 30-day average.
Well, if you know you're in control, then it's not super important to get it very often. So I'm glad you were able to finally get it, though, after your doctor was denying it for so long.
So, but like I said, the good part about it was it taught me that I could run normal blood sugars without insulin as long as I had some pancreatic function, and then I just had to add in the insulin. So the basal, I guess I looked at it pretty analytically because of the shock that the nurse gave me. I didn't want to muck around with it, and if I do something, I usually do it well. So from there, I've quickly realised that it was hard to dial in one insulin, or actually I had 2, but I then added a third one. So the basal, I had to do some testing with that. So I did some fasting tests, and the only way I could get it to work was to split it 3 ways. So that's what I did. Twice just wasn't quite covering it. And I worked out for me that when I injected, the insulin started working about 3.5 hours later, and then would wear off about 8 hours after that. So I inject about every 8 hours, so it allows me to sleep for 7 to 8 hours at night. I don't wake up and test in the middle of the night. If I wake up, I will test, but I don't set an alarm. I don't have someone that wakes me up. I value my sleep, and the basal will cover my sleep until the early hours, and then if I wake up in time, then I'll just take an IM and my basal shot, and I usually either go back to sleep or go and walk the dog and start my day. So but working out that taking away the meal and not having the bolus on board was how I worked out my basal rate, and then that's changed a couple of times due to different things, and then I just added in the meal stuff.
What kind of basal insulin do you take?
I take Liberate.
Oh, Liberate?
Yeah.
Nice.
Liberate pen. You see that all right? Yeah. And I just use a 4 mil subcut. I was using a 6 mil, but my educator said that 4 mil is just going to be a little bit better for my body type, and you don't want to go too deep. So that's been great. And that's got a little digital readout in the back end. So that's, you can see that.
Ooh, fancy pen, huh?
upside down.
That's very
Yeah,
nice.
so that's my last shot a couple of hours ago, just when I woke up to the units. And yeah, when I wake up, I'll test my blood sugars. Usually they're in range. You know, diabetes, all sorts of things can happen, but I've got good control. And any time after that, when I wake up, if they start to rise, I just take an IM. So usually that's this little guy, the Novo Rapid. Oh, he's got no pen on him this morning, no needle, so didn't take an IM for that. Yeah, so and then go through to breakfast, and breakfast might be an hour later, it might be after a workout, it might be after a walk, it might be 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. It varies with work and stuff.
So let's talk about your workouts, because that's definitely something I wanted to get into. With low carb and working out, there's always the worry of going too low, going too high. How do you manage to stay level during your workouts?
Sure. So for me, I get up and go and walk the dog so that I've just got some blood flow, come back, have a drink of water. I don't generally do coffee, not because it spikes me. I just find that I get addicted to it. So I never used to drink it, so I'm a bit on and off at the moment. So come back, check my blood sugars. Hopefully they're around high 70s, low to mid 80s. Then I go out and do my warm up. As soon as I finish my warm up, I'll take that Novo Rapid pen, put an 8 mil on it, and take 1 point. For me, I used to take 1 unit in the shoulder, so into muscular, and that would see me close at the end of the workout. Usually I'd have a little spike up around 100, but now I found that if I'm going to do an intense workout, like a squat workout, chin-ups, that sort of stuff, 1.5 units, regularly I'm in the fours after my workout, half an hour after my workout. So, but the timing of it is that I do my warm-up first, because I don't want that sitting in my system when I'm not going to be anywhere near an intense workout. Otherwise, I'm going to dip really low. Like, for instance, I'm jumping around a little bit here. In the morning, if I take an IM, say I'm at 83 and I woke up, and then an hour later, I'm at 90. I'll take an IM. Within an hour, because I'm on MDI and blood thinner. I don't use a CGM. I don't use a liberate. I don't use any continuous glucose meter. I'm in the high threes to high fours. So 75 to 88, somewhere in there, just as the numbers. And that's just been predictable. I've just got it down where that's my routine. If I see any rise, if I get up, no, I've gone back again. If I get up earlier to let the dog out, the dog sleeps inside. If I get up, she wakes up at 2 or 3, I'll take my basal then. So I'll take a couple of units in. And then by the time I wake up 3 or 4 hours later, that's kicked in. So then I won't have a DP rise. But I won't set that alarm. I'll just wake up at 5, have it. And then 3 hours later, I know it's going to kick in 3.5 hours later. So I'll take my IM, go do my exercise with the dog, come back, and then I'll start my workout, 1.5 units in the shoulder just before the work sets start. And yeah, that works really well. So it takes a bit of juggling. Some people, that'd be way too much insulin. Some people don't like the 8 mil in the shoulder or the 12.7. I find the 8 mil works good. Some people don't like IMs, but to me, it's always a trade-off. If you're going to take it subcut, it's going to react a lot slower. So I find I spike very quickly for my workout. And then I'm a little bit more insulin sensitive afterwards with my food.
Do you use our insulin for those IM shots?
No, I don't. I use Novo Rapid because it doesn't hang around as long and it brings things.
So you're really quick on that, huh? Using the IM and the Novo Rapid.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, and again, in the morning, that's when I work out. So fasted, I've got nothing else on board. The basal's still yet to kick in generally. If it is in, I know I'm not going to drop low on it. I'm only going to spike because it's an intense workout. If I was going for a 30-mile bike ride, that would be different. I'd have my glucose and my tester with me. Unless I was doing some sort of hill sprint, I wouldn't have to worry about a spike. I might only have to worry about a gradual low. But yeah, the workout, I've experimented a little bit with the IM. It's good for the early morning stuff when I'm not going to work out, I've found, because it hangs around longer, in that I can take it at 4 o'clock in the morning and then go back to sleep. I'll wake up in range at, say, 7, which is what typically happens. I have to be up and about for 7 at the latest for work and stuff. So, and weekends, it's typically in a routine. So now I've found the Nova Rapid doesn't last as long, brings it down a lot quicker. But if I take that late morning, early afternoon, 1 unit will drop me 4 millimole. So if I'm at 8, it'll drop me to 4. If I'm at 4, it'll drop me to close to 0. So, yeah.
Want to avoid that.
First thing in the mornings. Yeah. So first thing, it's just just an experimental thing that I know what will happen in the afternoons. So if I've got a minor correction in the afternoon, say I've had a bigger than normal lunch or something, and I've got the dose wrong by half a unit with the regular, haven't covered the proteins properly, and an hour and a half later or 2 hours later I'm at 6, then I'll think about taking a 4 mil on the Nova Rapid and just doing a subcut for half a unit or a unit, and that'll drop me back down to the normal range, depending on how long it's been since I've eaten. I don't like to overlap the insulin.
So just to be clear, do you use R for your meals? Yeah,
Yes.
you use R for your meals,
Yes.
and you use the Nova Rapid for corrections and IM injections for working out.
Yeah. The only time I'll use Nova Rapid for a meal is if I'm having eggs. They just seem to match in really well.
Interesting.
The R matches in, but I've got to allow half an hour from when I inject. So if I'm not organised in the morning and I take my R shot, I've got to wait half an hour, then eat slowly for half an hour. That's how I've worked out the timing with this. So all of the insulins require a timing schedule, as you know. So the basal, I got that down. The regular, I couldn't quite work it because I would take it and I'd get this rise after a meal, and I was reading Dr. Bernstein, he's going, you can have normal blood sugars before, during and after. And I was like, how does he do that? Because I just can't seem to time it in. I'm using the R, protein amount seems about right. I'm full, satiated, everything's good after a meal, but I'm getting this gradual rise. So normally it was about a 6. So what would that be in your, so about 100, and maybe a little bit higher. And so I'd have to correct, and of course sometimes I get that wrong. And so then all I did was start eating my meal a little bit slower. I'd wait the full half an hour for the R to start kicking in, and I just eat really slowly, and I just find something to do while I was doing that, whether it be reading or watching something. And that was great. And that meant I could have normal blood sugars before, during, and after,
good.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, generally, I mean, there's still corrections you've got to do. But that was a little thing that I found, was just making sure that I ate slowly. I think because I started on Nova Rapid, with my first script was for Nova, I didn't get a basal until I pushed for it. No, so I got a basal, but I didn't know what to do with it. Sorry. So I started on Nova Rapid, and I couldn't get it to work. Sometimes I was okay, but I was either low or high after a meal with a normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's
trying to match the line.
hard to match the
even with
big spike of insulin with the incline of protein.
Yeah, and I was finding out that I was going high a couple of hours later, and then having to correct and stuff, and then going low, and I couldn't work out what was doing what. The R, when another type 1 introduced me to R, we were in a group meeting, it was really good. Half a dozen of us caught up, and I was like, oh, what are you using? And they're like, oh, this is regular insulin. I was like, okay, I've heard about it in the book, but I don't know. And long story short, my doctor refused to give it to me. So what I did was ask one of the other guys if they had a spare vial. They said, yeah, sure, meet me at such. So we met later. They didn't have one that night. We met a few days later. I took the vial, saying I'll promise to give it back, give you one back when I get sorted with my own. Had moved towns, went back and saw my old doctor when I was on holiday to see my parents, took the R in and said, oh, I'm on R now. Can I have another script for this at the end of the appointment? Yeah, sure. And handed me the script. This is the guy that told me that I couldn't have it, but I told him I was using it, and he said, okay, yeah, sure. So he wrote me the script, and then that was it. So that's how I got into using regular. not through the normal channels, but yeah, it's good.
Nice, nice. That's great. I had a similar
Yeah.
story. I was using a Novolog for the longest time before switching to R, and my only saving grace was the fact that I almost always boast well after I should have anyways. So it kind of worked out, but it wasn't ideal at the slightest. I'm glad I switched back to R.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so you mentioned that do you always do a IM shot before your workouts, or is that just with the intense exercise?
If it's a weight workout, yeah, I'll consider taking 1 unit. If it's just shoulder presses and bicep curls and stuff like that, um, I can't not make it intense. Like it's weights, and I'm going to go to close to failure. Usually 6 to 12 reps, somewhere in there. So 1 unit I'll do that. But if I'm going to squat, then it's going to really hurt. I'm going to breathe really heavy. My blood's going to, I'm going to feel a bit nauseous after workout. Then I'll take 1.5 units, and I've just found that works for me just consistently. So, but again, that's fasted. If it was later in the day, which I occasionally do, I'll just err on the side of caution and take 1 unit for the same workout. But that doesn't happen
What
very
about
often.
something like a bike ride or a jog?
I don't run. I'm almost 50. My knees aren't great. I used to run. I'll walk the dog for like this. After this, I'll go and walk the dog for about 45 minutes to an hour for the late start today. I won't take anything for that. I'll typically take I've got my glucose here. It's in a little old AccuCheck strip container. So I've got about 10 tablets
Smart.
in there. I might need one of those on a walk, but that's rare. So I'll just go and walk, and I'll just test when I get back. Typically in range, if I was to go for an hour bike ride and not do any hill work, possible that I could dip low. But again, I just take my tester with me and take that glucose and just pop the 1.4 gram tablets, pure glucose. So I'd pop one of those, maybe two of those for a correction, and then keep riding or whatever. I haven't found anything, to be honest. I haven't found anything that I can't not run normal blood sugars. There's no activity I've done yet. Sleeping all night, working a 12-hour night shift has complication. There's some issues there. 38-mile bike ride, so 2 hours for 60 kilometres, if there's any Australians listening. I can get that down pat. It takes a little bit of work. It's not like you go out the first time and it all comes in together. Going on holidays, running, normal stuff. I scuba dive. I used to scuba dive seven years ago. I stopped scuba diving 7 years ago. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed. It's just that I was working away, so I wasn't able to scuba dive. So I thought, I can't do it. I thought it's a contraindication, type 1. And then 2 of the type 1s in our local Perth group both scuba dive. They're like, no, you can do it. I was like, oh, okay. What do you guys do? And they're like, oh, da, da. But then I went and did a nitrox course, and I had to sign off on my health. And this time I'm type 1, so I had to sign off on that. So I ticked the boxes. And he said, oh, no, you need to go and see a doctor, get a medical. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah. And one of them had an experience where they'd been to the doctor, and the doctor had taken the $100 off them and said, did the whole medical, half an hour, 40 minutes, and then said, oh, sorry, no, you're type 1. You can't dive. And so he said, you knew this at the start. Like, I was open with it. And why did we do the medical? And I paid you the money. This is ridiculous. So he made a complaint. And then he went to another doctor. And the doctor said, yeah, sure, you can dive with type 1. Just eat 2 Mars bars before you go under, and, just don't go low. Test and eat 2 Mars bars. So I went and saw the same doctor. He told me the same advice. But I dive fasted. I wake up, do the same regime, we're going to call it, that I've done this morning. Go out to the boat, usually board about 8, diving by about 10:30. And I'll just do that fasted, and I'll run normal blood sugars. I'll run 80 under the water. I'll run like 4.5 millimole. Come up around 90. I've dived half a dozen times the last few months. My highest reading has been 100, and I haven't had a low. and then I'll just have lunch, and I'll either skip the second dive because of lunch, and depending on how close it is after lunch, or because I'm just rolling the dice there, or if it's long enough break, and depending on what I've eaten and what my test shows, I'll go do the second dive. So yeah, so nothing. I haven't found anything yet. No, except one thing I'd lie. I can't eat starchy carbohydrates. I can do all of this. I can go exercise. I can work a 12-hour night shift. I can scuba dive, but I can't control my blood sugars eating moderate amounts of carbohydrates. So that was the big thing for me. That it blows me away that they still recommend it. That you have to do it.
I want to talk about that. As I know in the U.S. in my home state, they recommend the typical low-fat, high-carb kind of diet, but do they have any kind of recommendations like that in Australia? What's it like over there?
Yeah, that's exactly what I followed for 20 years, and with devastating results. Not able to have any energy, unless it was based on my last meal. That's a really good thing about low carb, especially if you do it 100%. I find I don't get hungry. Like I have energy levels. Before, people would say to me, "Jamie, you're always tired. You eat a lot." I'd still work out. I'd still do stuff. I wasn't overweight, but metabolically, I wasn't using the food. I was having 5 to 6 meals a day, the classic bodybuilder, chicken, broccoli, rice, and just able to maintain weight, just feeling tired all the time. But now, generally, energy levels are really good. Still got to watch the late nights and stuff, but I don't get hungry. It was before, if I didn't have a meal every 3 or 4 hours, I was getting cranky.
Getting hangry. I like that word, angry and hungry.
Cranky.
It's one of my favorite combinations.
Cranky. Yeah.
So you noticed the biggest change between... So before you were diabetic, you were doing a low-fat approach, essentially. You were eating healthy, you were eating well, you were very athletic, but you still managed to get type 1 diabetes anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I was following the advice to the T. When I got diagnosed, I remember the nurse, she was sitting on a sick bed in this little room on the ship, and she started biting her lip and kicking the bed with her heel. I was like, "What's up?" And she goes, "Are you diabetic?" She just did a fasting blood sugar test. I said, no, you've got to do more tests than this. She goes, no, you're 15 millimole fasted. You haven't had anything to eat this morning? No, nothing to eat. You told me not to eat. Yeah, you're 15 millimole fasted. You're diabetic. And I was like, oh, okay. I just lost my train of thought.
You were talking about how you got diagnosed there, and you're like, no, it can't be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't remember what I was thinking. That's all right. All good.
Yeah, you said you're 15 millimole.
Yeah, no, I can't remember the point I made. I went off on a tangent, and I can't remember where I started.
That's all right. I wanted to make the point. It always makes me so curious about how we're told that this is the healthiest diet to be on, the low-fat chicken and broccoli diet, yet people like you still end up getting diabetes. What's up with that?
Yeah,
I'd love to see.
It would be nice to know.
Yeah, I love to see how many people on a low carb approach for at least a few years end up becoming diabetic. I don't think there's a study on that. I'd love for that information to come up someday, though. Anyways,
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I'm thinking. If I was low carb before diagnosis, like years before, I'm sure that there would have been a honeymoon period. So whatever started the type 1, the autoimmune issue. The honeymoon period would have lasted for a lot longer, for sure. Yeah, I think that just makes sense. But you reminded me of what I was talking about. So, because you mentioned getting, what was your diet? So yeah, it was high carb, low fat, and a moderate amount of protein. I mean, it was just a classic diet that people recommend with no junk food. And so when this nurse diagnosed me, 15 millimole, so about 280 in your terms, I laughed. And she goes, "What are you laughing for?" And I said, "Oh, all my mates think I'm the healthy one. Like, I eat clean. If I go over to their place for lunch, I'll have the chicken breast with a salad. and they'll be, having the chips and stuff, and I won't eat it, like, and so they'll laugh. And there's a group of us that all left high school together. We still know each other, 4 of us. And I told each one of them separately, and they all did the same thing. They laughed and said, "You're the healthy one." I still, they do all sorts of things. We won't talk about that here. But interesting how it all works out. But yeah, I was on the wrong track. I mean, now I should have just, looking back, I should have been low carb the whole time. But I just believed the authorities. It was in all the magazines. It was everywhere.
No one could blame you for that, man. Hopefully, I think the ball is rolling. Hopefully that'll be changing eventually.
I reckon they should teach Dr. B in schools.
They really should. The fact that nutritionists don't know about... They don't even really learn much about ketosis at all from what I've seen. The classic nutritional model doesn't even bring it up. That's a real shame. I mean, you literally have doctors that think ketosis and ketoacidosis are the same thing. It's a crying shame. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and I thought it was too for the first, I don't know how many months until I found it in the book and started reading and did a bit more research. I had no idea, but I was testing for ketones occasionally and going, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." Oh. So now if I do an extended fast, I've done a couple of fasts around 3 or 4 days, I'll get up to around 4 or 5 millimole with the ketones. I think it's the same there's no conversion with ketones, is that right?
I believe it's the same, yes.
Yeah, and but typically I'm around 1 or 2.
1 or 2 is like ketosis range. 10 or above that is getting into the ketoacidosis range. So it's a big difference. But I wanted to ask, since it is the same kind of advice they give here and there, how the doctors feel when you told them you were taking a low-carb approach. Were they for or against it?
Yeah, I guess there was a couple of people who said it's not sustainable. A couple of people worried about cholesterol levels. And I'm talking everyone from endocrinologists to diabetes educators to doctors. And we've got a pretty good health system here. So I can go in and see, like I get 5 free visits a year to either a diabetes educator or someone similar. So we use those. So we go in and see them. Most people do, I guess, or I do. And typically the same thing. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I don't see this in my normal population with type 1s. You're running normal blood sugars. You're not having lows. Keep doing it. That's really nice, because initially they're like, you can't, Jamie, you can't sustain it. Cholesterol, and it's too hard, and why be so strict and all that sort of stuff. But I don't find it. Once I'm committed, I think once someone's committed to the low carb and they're on it, if they're going back and forth, that's a different ball game. I've done that. I've walked past the ice cream section and gone, "Oh yeah, I'll have that today." And but yeah, I don't do that anymore. It took a while. The cravings are gone. Energy levels are there. I'm not hungry. So when you're not hungry, that's the big one. If you're hungry and you're in the shop, that's never go shopping hungry. That's not a good setup. So yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be going back and forth, because you're just putting your body through too much doing that, no matter what you're doing. And so it took a while for them to get on board, but eventually the numbers spoke for themselves and they could ignore it. Are your cholesterol levels not that good now?
Yeah, my LDL's elevated. Triglycerides are under 1. I don't know what but well in range. I've got no idea how that converts. HDLs are good. What's the other one? ApoB, I think it is. The particle size. Everything else is good. But they're not happy that they're a little bit elevated. But I'm not worried. I think the stress is going to do worse than what that is. But I follow Ivor Cummings a lot on YouTube, and he's on some of the Facebook sites. He's good. He's got some good information. So I pick and choose who I trust in these days, Justin. So someone's got to have some skin in the game. Like guys like RD, he's got skin in the game. Guys like Dr. Bernstein, he's got skin in the game. He's doing it and living it. And, that's, for me, I look at him and go, if he can do it, I can do it. To me, type 1's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. You start off with just all the pieces. You got a bit of an idea of what it should look like at the end. You start putting them down. you get some in the wrong place and you just never move them, or you give up. If you keep going and you get the right advice and you're patient and you work at things like basal testing, getting your basal right, because if you don't have that right, then it affects everything else. And if you're dipping low and you're getting it and you're doing corrections or taking glucose or whatever for the wrong reasons, then you're going to be on a roundabout. So I think I've got that jigsaw almost put together. You know, there might be a few little pieces missing, but it's not set and forget. Things change. But like I said, there's nothing I've found that I can't do other than eat carbs to any degree. And it's just trying to match the peak. You know, that's it. And I'm just not interested in getting being hungry again, not being fat adapted. So yeah, it's great.
It really is a journey, you know, an experiment for each one of us. I mean, the reason I wanted to get what you would do for your workout wasn't just to say, hey, this is what you should do, because it's going to be different for everyone. You know, some people, they might not need to inject at all. They don't want any insulin on board. Some, they might want to take a little bit of snack before they go. They might dip. It all depends on the individual a lot. It all depends on the base of the bolus. There's just so many different factors. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out too. But I'm doing a lot better than I was before. And
yeah, it's incremental. Yeah. If you really do lock something down, I think that's where Bernstein goes, and he has the same meal. I don't quite do that, but he has the same meal day in, day out, and he knows, you know. I'm close to that, closer than what I was. But yeah, you hit on, everyone is different, and some people don't want to be taking an IM before a workout, especially if in a group situation and you're not sure what's about to happen. That would be disastrous. I don't do group, you know, it's like a spin class.
Yeah, you don't want to be.
Today we're going to. No.
You might embarrass yourself a little bit. Also, diabetic, he's freaking out again.
As long as you've got your glucose handy, you don't have to go and find it, or you've forgotten it. You know, you've got to be careful about these things. But I let everyone who's interested, who I think, like, say if I go scuba diving, the skipper knows, the deckhand or the dive masters know. Yeah, and they're not overly concerned. I show them my numbers, I tell them what I do, and they're like, yeah, cool, it sounds good to me. They probably should be a little bit more concerned than that. I mean, I wouldn't go scuba diving if I wasn't well controlled, but it can be done. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to get across, the message I really want to get across, and I think you do too, is that everyone's different, but it can be done. You need to tweak things to suit you, and use the framework that Dr. B's got. I'll just quickly touch on a couple of other things that aren't really Dr. B, although he does talk about them a little bit in his webinars and stuff. Like intermittent fasting, I believe a lot of the time he doesn't have breakfast. Like he'll have lunch and dinner. And that's because he's so busy at work. Like, you know, he's 84 years old and he's running a practice. He doesn't have time for breakfast. To me, that's just amazing. But so there's a degree of intermittent fasting there that would help with his blood sugar control, because you're moving a meal. It's a bolus. So you haven't got the overlap, the timing. There's a whole heap of other things. And the other one is follow a few people who talk about time restricted eating. So eating in an 8 or a 10-hour window, and then not snacking and the rest of it all, eating before you go to bed or as soon as you get up in the morning. So that's those two things have helped me as well. I implement those either for the scuba diving or for a workout or just to feel good, or if I've got a meeting at work, I'll just go into the meeting without any insulin on board, so I know I can run normal blood sugars and then have the meal afterwards, that sort of thing. So.
Can you go into a little bit more detail on that? Like, are you saying you just skip breakfast or sometimes, or what?
Yeah, so if I'm going to go out on the boat for a dive, I'll definitely skip breakfast. So then I'll have just lunch and dinner. But typically I'll have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. It just, I'll try and squeeze those in to an 8-hour window. So if I have breakfast at 9 and I take Novo Rapid because I'm having eggs. So like this morning, and when I finish here, I'm going to have some poached eggs and some bits and pieces. I'll take the Novo Rapid, and I know that I'll be finished. Everything will be sorted by 12 o'clock. So then I can have my regular, and at 12:30 or 1, I can eat. And then I can have my meal around 4 hours after that. I don't want to have anything any closer than that. So around 5 p.m, another shot, eat again, and I'm all done and dusted. So before I go to bed, I know what's going on with my blood sugars, whether they're going up or dipping low. I can make a little correction and go to bed with peace of mind. I don't worry. I was thinking about last night, like our conversation, what we might talk about. And I was thinking about the peace that I have, the confidence that I have going to bed without a CGM. It's crazy. And then, so apparently that helps with your circadian clock, so you sleep better. Obviously, digestion's not an issue. It's already done and dusted. You're giving your body a bit of a break. That eating window is not from when you wake up to when you go to bed. And I don't snack. I follow the Bernstein, as in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, basically 6, 12, and 12 with the carbs. I don't measure them religiously, but I've got after 6 years, I've got a pretty good idea. So so the Nova Rapid will allow me to do that. If I took 3 shots of R, if I didn't have the eggs, if I had something else for breakfast, a heavier protein, so to speak, or a lot more protein, then I'd have to push it out a little bit further. So works.
And it's good to have that peace of mind. I actually skip breakfast myself too, not for any particular reason other than I'm just not hungry in the mornings, and I don't feel a need to eat if I'm not hungry. It definitely is important to have a routine because your insulin sensitivity varies throughout the day, and if you actually have a routine, same thing, same time, same place, that's a lot less variables, and it's more predictable the less variables you have. That's part of the whole point with the approach.
On that, I think it's really important for people to understand how long it takes for an insulin to start working in their body, like a fast acting, how long 1 unit takes subcut. And you can sit there and test, watch your CGM. I like finger pricks. I mean, they're the gold standard. If you wash your hands, I've had too many CGMs because I do trials. So like I'll go and pay $100 to go and do a 2-week trial with a G4 or a Liberate. And if I'm doing some basal testing, I'll line that up so that I pay the money, get the results, have the 2 weeks, have the appointment, have the discussion afterwards about, my trends and stuff. And they go, Jamie, we can't find any, there's no, it's great. Initially they did, of course, they're saying, well, you're spiking here and you've got a trend upwards here and this sort of thing. But now it's a bit different. So, but I'll take 1 unit Novo Rapid subcut and just see what it does. Like the very first thing I ever did with insulin was take 1 unit Novo subcut and just see what it did. And it dropped me. It was great. Just watched it, had the glucose sitting there. And R's the same thing. Like if you don't have the timing of how long that R takes to kick in, whether it's straight away, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I think is out there for some people. And then you eat too fast. Like when I was having Novo, and once I injected, I had to eat. If that meal wasn't sitting there, I was in trouble. So, I learned, I've worked out all of those things, and now I just mixed it up. I have 3 different shifts at work. So I have an early 7 o'clock. I have a 9 o'clock, which is a normal 9 to 5. And then I have a late, so midday till 8:30 at night. And that's what I did last night. And that makes it a little bit more difficult with the timing of breakfast and lunch, but works pretty flexible. And I can eat early at 6 or 7 if I want to, and I can eat at 9, 10, 11, 12 if I have to, or I can go 24 hours, which is really nice because that's thinking back, that was impossible.
It seems unheard of on a typical diet where you're hungry all the time. Wouldn't have been comfortable. I wouldn't have been happy. Wouldn't have been a happy person. In fact, I remember a couple of fasting blood tests from like 20 years ago. I rocked up this one particular one in Albany, and I didn't even get to the doctor. The receptionist said, "So you've been fasting?" Yeah. I fasted since 6 o'clock yesterday. And she goes, "Yeah, it's 10 a.m. That's too long. You have to go home." And I was not happy. Yeah, apparently too long?
The fasting. Yeah, apparently for whatever test they were running and whatever protocol that they used back then, and they might still do it, that you shouldn't fast for, I think it's 10 to 12 hours is about the window that you want to be fasting for, apparently. But she said, "No, sorry, it's too long." And I was grumpy and hungry.
I've been pretty upset too. I couldn't imagine fasting or even just skipping breakfast before I start low carb. And I mean, you're eating such full meals, you're just not that hungry after. You can go hours and hours and hours and be fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Justin, I've got.
I'll ask you one more question. You have to go? One more
Yeah,
question.
I've just
One more
got a
question
bit of
then.
a.
If you could
That's all right.
tell the diabetics watching this anything, what would it be?
Read Dr. B's book. Watch his seminars, join Type 1 Facebook group, and I guess there's so many things. Learn how to use R. Find out your basal. Once you've got those two down, with low carb, corrections pretty straightforward. You don't have those big swings. Look, hats off to every single person out there who's an adult that's bringing up a child who's type 1, from infant through to teenager. That's incredible. I just do it for myself. I know what can be done. But yeah, that's, and it can be done with the simple stuff. You don't need all the tech in the world. It can be done with MDI and blood finger pricks. I run a 4.7 average with my A1C. I just use MDI and blood finger pricks. And every 6 months or so, I'll do a 2-week test just to, have a bit of a look at what's going on. But definitely if you're committed, and there's a good reason to commit, unfortunately type 1 is type 1. I don't believe it's going away anytime soon. I think this cure thing, although everyone wishes, there was a cure, we've got the next best thing, and commit to that. And then, if the cure comes along, you'll be in great shape to follow through with it.
Fantastic. That's amazing advice. Well, we'll leave it at that since you have to get going, Jamie. Thank you so much for your time today. It was great talking to you. You've a lot of wisdom there. This is how Jamie tamed his type 1.